Did we really just get 4?
The Golden State Valkyries trade the rights to Flau'jae Johnson to the Seattle Storm for the rights to Marta Suarez and their 2028 second-round pick.
Okay. All right, so looking back over the 2026 WNBA Draft, we had an interesting night. That's the best way I can describe it. The first 4 picks were pretty much a given. It was just depending on how they shook loose. And then after that, that's when the real bomb started dropping. So let's take a look and see where things took a left turn. With the number 1 pick, the Dallas Wings selected Azzi Fudd. I mean, for the most part, it really wasn't that big of a surprise, regardless of all the behind the scenes. She was the running mate with Paige Bueckers, their franchise player, so this at least gives them a chance to see what that looks like. Obviously they could have taken Awafam, but this is the direction they want to go. The Wings picked up a lot of, we saw the moves the Wings made before the draft, Jessica Shepard, Elena Smith, so we pretty much knew they were going in the guard direction anyway. I love it for the Wings. I think it puts butts in seats, the most important thing for a business, right? And then obviously you make your franchise star happy, which makes Enrique happy, and that's going to go down the line. So to get the number 1 pick, there really was no bad choice, so we really just saw what they were thinking. All right, and then with the number 2 pick, with Azzi off the board, it was still a bit of a toss-up. You know, where did the Lynx want to go? But they have been losing their depth throughout free agency. So picking up Olivia Miles, I think was right on point. A top-tier playmaker that you're going to pair with Nafisa Collier, Kayla McBride, Courtney Williams in that backcourt. So I think this was an obvious pick. I think they probably knew, right, the Wings would pick Fudd or Awafam, so the Lynx probably already knew this was their pick. I like it. They went with the no-brainer, so 10s across the board. And then you get to the Seattle Storm, which honestly quietly won the entire draft. I don't know who they have finessing people on the phones, but with the number 3 pick, they picked up Awafam, a center you're gonna put next to Dominique Malonga, probably keeping Fam at the 4, so that actually gives Seattle a crazy front court. That is insane. And then on the low, these teams are hitting with these international players. Number 1, you're getting them a lot younger. A 19-year-old. Dominique Malonga came in as a teenager. When you're getting a lot of American players closer to their mid-20s. So you get a lot more runway with both of these players. And by the time you wrap up the entire draft and what Seattle took home, they did great. Alright, and then after that, the Washington Mystic picked up Lauren Betts, which was a no-brainer at this point. She's still on the board. Now, I thought this was a good pick, even after signing Shakira Austin. Now, that'll probably create some mix-ups in the season. They might end up trading Shakira Austin. But for who was on the board, we pretty much knew she was going. And I don't think that's a bad system for her. I don't think that's a bad spot to be in. Sonia Citron, pairing with her, they might find a little dynamic duo there. So, I thought it was alright. Then after that, that's when you got a little bit interesting. Honestly, the Chicago Sky, and not just the Chicago Sky, obviously a majority of these GMs and decision makers were watching March Madness, because for the 5th pick in the draft, the Chicago Sky selected Gabriela Jaquez, and I like Gabriela Jaquez. Obviously she's here, she deserves to be here, and I like her brother, he plays nice for the Heat. But this high in the draft is kind of crazy. For a lot of these picks, it just seemed, after this pick, for a handful of them, it just seemed like if this is what you were going to do with your pick, why not trade back, get a little bit more value, especially where a lot of them were ranked initially. She definitely wasn't this high on the board. Still in the lottery, I think they had her around like 11 or 12, but 5, especially for the Chicago Sky, is crazy. Each decision they make is wilder and wilder. Yes, Jeff Cook putting their squad together, but to trade for this pick and select somebody 5 or 6 picks too high. But I like Jaquez overall, so again, she was gonna get picked up, but probably not this early. So after this, you have some pretty nice names on the board, and because they're still there, it's shaking up everybody there afterwards. Now with the number 6 pick, Toronto did pick up Kiki Rice, a 5'11" guard out of UCLA. She had a really good senior year. I think the Tempo gets somebody they can build the culture with. I don't see a problem here. I think this was a pretty safe pick, and honestly, with her still on the board, it was a bit of a steal. I mean, she could have went 1 to 2 picks before this, just depending on, you know, the other team. So I think Toronto hit a pretty big move with their first draft pick ever. Rice is known for her IQ, two-way player, and playing under Sandy Brondello, she'll probably do pretty well over there. Alright, and then with the next pick, you had the Portland Fire selecting Ta'Niya Tanya Martine. I can't say I know a lot about this player, but it's obviously a pretty big bet probably to draft her this high. Not to draft her in general, because we know these expansion teams love international players. So with the Fire's first pick ever, they just take a big swing and hope it clears the fences. Alright, and then with the 8th pick, it was kind of wild that Flau'jae was still on the board for the Golden State Valkyries to select, and it was a no-brainer to pick her up. This was an excellent pickup. The fact that she fell to number 8 was really wild to a lot of people. I was hyped. This was great news after picking up Gabby Williams. For a team that's still creating their culture and identity and getting it all to mesh together, I thought Flau'jae was a great addition to that. And then you consider the city they're in. She's a rapper. She wants to be out there in the community. So I thought it was a great pick for the Valkyries. And actually, we'll talk about it now, because somehow they traded her to the Seattle Storm for Marta Suarez and a 2nd round pick. Now, no disrespect to Marta Suarez, but if that's who Golden State wanted, why didn't they just pick her? You passed on somebody who could have been a really good culture fit for a 2nd round pick. But hey, like I said, Seattle cooked, because not only did they pick up our fam, now Flau'jae Johnson, they actually ended up with another pretty decent guard in Ta'Niya Latson. So shy of maybe the Washington Mystics, Seattle absolutely went crazy in this draft. To lose that big 3, their main 3 through free agency, along with Jewel Lloyd a couple seasons ago, you lost Erica Wheeler, you lost Brittany Sykes, and now you bring in our fam, Marta Suarez, Ta'Niya Latson, and somehow look really, really good on paper. Now, I love the Storm. Outside of the Golden State Valkyries, that's my team. But they absolutely fleeced the Valkyries with this move, and ultimately just had a really good draft. I don't know why these teams don't invest more into the draft and scouts and getting these picks right, because almost every pick after that was just questionable after, oh, this is a steal because they dropped so far in the draft. Angela Dukelich went number 9 to the Washington Mystics. This was a pretty decent pickup. Honestly, they had the number 9 and 11 pick. They picked up Cody at number 11. I actually liked Cody in this position, but they went really, really forward heavy for some reason right after matching Shakira Austin. So it only confused me with these picks. I think they got great value. Maybe they'll try to make some trades over the next few days, or even if they wait a season, but they got really forward heavy to have 2 lottery picks, especially with Raven Johnson sitting right there in the middle. Raven Johnson went to Indiana, number 10 overall. Honestly, this is probably one of the safest players to say she should have went higher. I definitely like that she's reuniting with Aaliyah Boston, a tough guard out of South Carolina, coached by Don Staley. As a backup on Indiana, this is pretty sweet. She's got elite defensive IQ, so again, even on that 2nd string, they got really good value. And she's only going to get better with more years in the league. Alright, and then with the number 12 pick, the Connecticut Sun picked up Nell Angloma. Another team that kind of put in work in the draft were the Connecticut Sun. Not just picking up Nell, but adding strategically to the moves they made in free agency. Picking up a French wing is pretty smart right now. Again, when a little bit of that code is bringing in international players. Now, they're obviously trying to make some noise with their last season coming up. The other pick they made in the lottery was Neepkins. This was another player who should have went higher, but is probably a steal for Connecticut. If nothing else, you get a pretty good shooter in Neepkins. And again, going to Connecticut is a pretty good position for her as well. She'll definitely get some playing time over there. Connecticut is another team that kind of snuck in and did great work. Again, adding to the moves they made in free agency. Once we see them on the floor, we'll be able to see how well everybody moves together. But for it to be their last season, I think they did pretty good. Alright, and then with the 13th pick, the Atlanta Dream picked up Medina Okot from South Carolina. I think this is a great addition to Atlanta, especially filling out their roster behind an Angel Reese, behind a Brittany Griner, even if they use one of those developmental slots. If nothing else, I don't think they went wrong with this pick. Now, it definitely got a little bit wild after pick 5, but especially once we got out of round 1. So some of the key pickups once we get into round 2, Ta'Niya Latson was picked up by the LA Sparks. She fell to number 20. I think that's a big steal for this team. team. I mean, she was someone who was invited to the draft, so they definitely expected her to go higher. Some even had her in the top 10, but dropping to round 2 is pretty good for the Sparks. They get a pretty good score, knowing they have Plum, Neko Ogwumike, Erica Wheeler, Cameron Brink, again, especially being in round 2. I just think this is a decent pickup for the Sparks. And then the number 23 pick for the Golden State Valkyries ended up being Ashlyn Jackson from Duke. Now, we still have one more pick in the 3rd round. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a steal, but this could be a hidden gem for the Valkyries. A 6-foot guard with a high IQ. I'm not even going to say she should have gone higher. I just think this is somebody who could end up playing above their draft stock. So all in all, I have to give it to Seattle. They really came in and stole the draft. Again, getting away with Awafam and Flau'jae. While the Lynx didn't make crazy noise, I think Olivia Miles is an excellent addition to their team. I can't wait to see what Kiki Rice does on the Toronto Tempo. Oh, and I forgot to mention it, but I do think the Aces picking up Janiyah Barker is, again, another player that'll probably play above her stock. Once you look at the Indianas, Atlanta, Connecticut, they all did all right. They didn't do terribly bad. They didn't do amazingly good. And honestly, by the end, the Golden State Valkyries were completely disappointing. But it's okay. We can face it when we lose some too.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, players.